In the name of Allah most gracious, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to greet you all, and I commend at the outset of my statement the activism and sacrifices of Arab women, as well as their great contributions to address the multiple challenges facing our nation and societies, including those challenges related to combating discriminatory practices against women. Such challenges have exacerbated and their consequences have increased, and their burden have grown on the shoulders of Arab women, especially under the Israeli occupation, as well as during wars and armed conflicts and cases of collapse of the national Arab state, which is happening nowadays in a number of Arab countries, including my homeland, Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, Yemeni women have remarkably participated in the Great Revolution of September and October in 1962 and 1963 in order to be free from the imamate, colonization, and their social remnants. After the national independence, women achieved important legislative rights, notably in family legislation. Women were able to obtain leadership positions in the country and played many prestigious roles in political and public life. Despite of the decline that occurred at subsequent stages that deprived women of some gains they have made, the adoption and achievement of pluralistic political parties immediately following the year of Yemen unity and before 1994. This gave pretty good space for women to participate in political life that was strengthened later on in February 2011. Then upon the women's live participation with 30% of women during the National Inclusive Dialogue Conference in March 2013, lasting for nearly 10 months, where women contributed to the development of the outputs of the national dialogue and guide them to establish democratic values, justice, and equal citizenship. They were able to ensure positive discrimination for women engagement with at least 30% in decision-making positions. This was positively reflected for the first time on the participation of Yemeni women, with 4 women over 17 members in the drafting committee of the drafting of the new Yemeni constitution. Women members in this committee were able to write down as much rights as possible in the new constitution, contributing to the support and strengthening of women's role and position at the social, cultural, and political levels. Yet the fateful coup by the Houthi militia in September 2014, hoping to return to the time of imamate, led to slipping into war that is still blazing to date and interrupted the agreed-upon political process, mainly the adoption of the draft constitution and its referendum. Priorities changed, ambitions and hopes retreated. We are working today on addressing the consequences of this coup, war, and humanitarian tragedy, and endeavoring to restore the legitimate state and stop the instrument of destruction, devastation, war, and the Houthis' siege of peaceful cities. Yemeni women started suffering from daily scourge of war, being subject to killing, imprisonment, and torture. More than 4 million Yemeni, mostly women and children, were living in displacement camps, facing poverty, hunger, and pandemics in the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. Women's responsibilities grew during the war, facing the livelihood burden, particularly families who were engaged in the war, let alone the increasing female dropout rates, early marriage, and the growing violence against women of all forms and types, in addition to harassment and physical violence against women activists. We can imagine the devastating effects of mandatory recruitment of youth and children sent to the front lines and the consequences on family stability. As a result of the armed conflict, the number of female heads of households increased 3 times compared to the number before the war. There was a sharp drop in the agricultural production, where women represent almost 80% of the manpower. Ladies and gentlemen, in the context of addressing the cultural challenge facing the Arab women, we have to note the risks related to the rise of extremism and terrorism at the global level, including those growing, living, and thriving among us in the Arab world, and their role in deepening polarization and spreading hate, and the terrorist foci and organization of all types. While there are increasing calls to address such obscuration phenomena through the creation, development, and implementation of modern educational programs, as well as updating and reforming religious discourse, the Houthis militias are making big change in the educational curricula in the areas under their control, in a risky dedication to return to decades of retardation, myths, and superstitions that would have disastrous impacts on the Yemeni generations. They are even using the religious discourse to recruit women on the grounds of retarded sectarian principles to serve the oppressive military efforts, risking the lives of the female political activists, the growing religious and political fanatism in general, and the increasing power of social traditions and norms governed by political agendas are factors that diminish the potential of women empowerment and aggravate the obstacle to their advancement. In conclusion, we confirm the need to work seriously into integrating women in the development, planning, and implementation of all phases of the political process in Yemen, and engage them in the executive, legislative, and judicial institutions, the civil society organizations, the political parties, enabling women to play a leading role and effective one in the process of ending war, establishing peace, reconstruction, recovery, building, and stability. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.